Control and coordination describe how living organisms sense changes around them and then produce appropriate responses. Together, these systems let an organism keep internal conditions stable and behave in ways that increase its chances of survival. A clear sign of life is movement, from a seedling pushing up through soil to an animal chasing prey. That movement is usually a response to a stimulus, which simply means any change in the environment, like light, temperature, sound, smell, or touch. These responses can be driven by growth or by quick, controlled actions. But in every case, they help the organism survive and function. In animals, coordination depends mainly on nervous and muscular tissues working together. Receptor cells at the ends of nerves detect specific stimuli: taste receptors on the tongue, olfactory receptors in the nose. And neurons carry that information as electrical signals so the body can react. A neuron is the basic functional unit of the nervous system. Dendrites receive incoming signals. The cell body houses the nucleus and processes the information, and the axon conducts an electrical impulse away from the cell body. At the axon tip, chemical messengers cross a tiny gap called the synapse to pass the signal on to the next cell. Some responses are reflexes, rapid automatic actions to protect the body. In a reflex arc, a receptor detects a stimulus, a sensory neuron sends the message to the spinal cord, the signal is integrated and passed via a relay neuron to a motor neuron, and finally, an effector such as a muscle produces the response, like withdrawing your hand from heat. The nervous system is organized into two main parts: the central nervous system, made up of the brain and spinal cord, which processes information and issues instructions, and the peripheral nervous system, made up of cranial and spinal nerves, which forms the network that connects the CNS to the rest of the body. The brain itself is divided into major regions: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. The forebrain, which includes the cerebrum, handles higher functions: thinking, voluntary actions, memory, and integration of sensory input. Structures like the hypothalamus and pituitary help regulate hunger and many internal processes. The midbrain and hindbrain control many of the involuntary and automatic functions of the body. The hindbrain contains the cerebellum, which fine-tunes posture, balance, and coordinated movement, and structures like the medulla and pons that regulate breathing, blood pressure, and other essential reflexes. The central nervous system is well protected. The skull encases the brain, vertebrae surround the spinal cord, and cerebrospinal fluid cushions both organs against shock. At the cellular level, nerve impulses trigger changes in muscle proteins and cell shape, so muscle fibers shorten and produce movement. Alongside the nervous system, animals use hormones to coordinate activities over longer timescales. Endocrinology studies these ductless glands that secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream. Examples include the thyroid and parathyroid, while glands like the pancreas have both endocrine and exocrine roles. Hormones share a few characteristic properties. They are released only when needed, usually enter the bloodstream, and their secretion is controlled by feedback mechanisms. They act in very small amounts, are generally low molecular weight, and are often broken down after use. Thyroxine is an important exception because it can be stored. Different endocrine glands have distinct functions. The pituitary at the brain base is often called the master gland because it directs many other glands. The pineal secretes melatonin for sleep regulation. The thyroid controls metabolic rate through thyroxine. The pancreas regulates blood sugar with insulin and glucagon. Adrenal glands and gonads produce stress and sex hormones. The hypothalamus and pituitary work together as a regulatory hub. The hypothalamus produces releasing and inhibiting factors that control pituitary output, and the pituitary sits below it on a stalk, secreting hormones that influence growth, metabolism, and reproduction. This link makes them central to body-wide hormonal balance. The anterior pituitary secretes several protein hormones. Growth hormone promotes body growth and can cause dwarfism or gigantism, depending on deficiency or excess. TSH stimulates the thyroid. ACTH controls the adrenal cortex. FSH and LH regulate gamete formation and ovulation, while prolactin supports mammary development and lactation. The thyroid and parathyroid glands closely regulate metabolic rate and calcium balance. Thyroxine, an iodine-containing amine, increases basal metabolic rate and is uniquely stored in gland tissue. Parathormone raises blood calcium, while calcitonin lowers it. Imbalances can lead to conditions such as goiter, cretinism, osteoporosis, or tetany. The pineal gland secretes melatonin, involved in sleep and seasonal reproductive behaviors, while the thymus produces thymosin, a protein important for developing immunity by training T lymphocytes. Both play key roles beyond just classic endocrine effects, sleep regulation, and immune system development, respectively. The pancreas has clusters of endocrine cells called the islets of Langerhans that secrete insulin and glucagon. Insulin lowers blood glucose and its deficiency causes diabetes mellitus. Glucagon raises blood glucose. These hormones keep blood sugar within a healthy range, which is vital for body function. The adrenal gland has two functional parts. The cortex secretes steroid corticoids, mineralocorticoids for sodium and potassium balance, glucocorticoids for carbohydrate metabolism,
and a small amount of sex corticoids,
while the medulla releases adrenaline, a fast-acting amine that raises heart rate, blood pressure, and blood glucose. Disorders include Addison's disease and Cushing's syndrome.
Reproductive glands produce the sex corticoids.
Testes secrete testosterone to drive spermatogenesis and secondary male characteristics, while ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone to regulate oogenesis, the menstrual cycle, and pregnancy. These hormones shape development, behavior, and reproductive function. Nervous and hormonal coordination differ in important ways. Nervous messages are electrical and chemical, travel very rapidly, target specific cells, and produce immediate, short-lived effects. Hormones are carried in the blood, act more slowly, affect distant targets throughout the body, and generally produce longer-lasting changes. Plants coordinate without nerves or muscles by using electrical and chemical signals and by changing cell turgor. Some rapid movements are independent of growth. For example, the touch-me-not closes its leaves when stimulated. And these actions occur because cells locally lose or gain water, changing their shape, often at a point away from the stimulus. Many plant movements are growth-driven tropisms, which are directional responses. Phototropism towards light, geotropism toward or away from gravity, chemotropism, such as pollen tubes growing toward an ovule, hydrotropism toward water, and tendrils that coil around supports due to differential growth on one side. Plant hormones are small chemical regulators that coordinate growth, development, and stress responses. Auxin, made at shoot tips, promotes cell elongation and drives phototropism. Gibberellins encourage stem elongation and seed germination. Cytokinins stimulate cell division and are abundant in developing fruits and seeds. Abscisic acid inhibits growth and promotes stress responses like wilting. And together, these hormones control events such as germination, flowering, and leaf drop. That's it for today. Learn smarter with EduRev. Notes, tests, and practice in one app. Download EduRev now on Play Store and App Store and keep learning every day.